Hello and welcome to Hudson Institute. My name is Riley Walters. Thank you for joining us for our event on US-Taiwan AI cooperation and challenges. Artificial intelligence is making its way into the news, I think, every day. Whenever you open up the newspaper or open up your phones, there's something new always developing when it relates to artificial intelligence. When we think about technology, there's really two ways to think about this. There's the hardware side and the software side. And the United States would not have this boom in hardware, AI hardware technology today without Taiwan at the center of this. And so I thought it'd be great to have this event to talk about some of the things that are going on in AI in general, what are going on within Taiwan, what are going on within the United States, what are, of course, some of the challenges and opportunities for our countries to work together in all of this, and of course, just the tech itself. What is the future of the technology, the regulations regarding the technology, and the regulations when it comes to tech cooperation, tech competition, whether it's with Taiwan or whether it's with China or otherwise. And so we've put together a great group here of experts who can hopefully shed some light, even though I know we're just going to scratch the surface today on a lot of this. Let me quickly introduce, first up is Jeremy Cheng. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Research Institute for Democracy, Society, and Emerging Technology, or DSET. It's a national think tank established in 2023 focused on combating the spread of digital authoritarianism. Up next is Ethan Tu, who is the founder of Taiwan AI Labs, and it is the first, if not one of the first, nonprofit AI research labs in Asia. And then finally, we have Jason Chu, who is a senior fellow here at Hudson Institute and probably one of the preeminent experts on US-Taiwan tech policy. So with that, we're going to do a quick remarks from each of our speakers, and then we're going to go into hopefully a really robust and good Q&A session here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Riley. And thanks so much for having me. Jeremy Chan, I'm CEO of DSET. DSET, as Riley just introduced, it's a new created national think tank by Taiwanese government. Our mission is really focusing on secure democratic ideologies jointly with our allies. So we've been focusing on many of the strategic issues that not only critical in Taiwan, but also critical for all the like-minded allies. So especially we are focusing on economic security research and in terms of economic security, because Taiwan is the center of this kind of geopolitical competition. We've been put into the spotlight for a while. So everybody knows that Taiwan has a very, very critical role in terms of a semiconductor developing and manufacturing. So not only semiconductors, because Taiwan has one of the most comprehensive and complete solution in terms of this kind of ICT or electronic manufacturing ecosystem. If we're mentioning about economic security from a AI perspective, AI development perspective, I think most of the American researchers are really focusing on something downstream of AI, like language model. That's pretty like downstream applications, downstream. Upstream, many of the American researchers just stop there in chips. Yeah, so the chips, of course, is kind of compared to other software applications or upstream. But on the other hand, when we are looking at this kind of upstream chips, actually there are like thousands of new layers, upper streams there within this manufacturing ecosystem. So not only chips inside the semiconductors, there's many of the sectors like materials, like equipment. Even within the chips, there are tens of thousands of different processes that rely on different kind of technologies, materials. Those are the frontier of Taiwan, because Taiwan has been put in this kind of a manufacturing front line. Every day we've been brutally compete with the PRC rivalries in terms of this kind of chips, materials, equipment. For example, just to make one of a very quick example. For example, like I'm not sure if everybody knows a term called PCB, so printed circuit board. So this is wherever exists. If you break up any kind of electronic devices, you can see a green board. It's like a plastic-like board, but that's actually existing in whatever electronic devices, from AI servers to your smartphone to refrigerators to every electronic devices. But how about the global market share of the PCB manufacturing? Actually, currently, Taiwan and China jointly to produce 80% of the global PCB manufacturing. And if we are lacking of a PCB, even though we have chips, even though we have other components, but we just don't have a platform to put our chips and put other components to connect each other. So without PCB, it's meaningless. Our technology is meaningless. Our AI is meaningless. So that's one of a very, very random case I want to raise. But even in terms of the PCB, there's a frontier. Taiwan is competing with the PRC in terms of who is dominate this kind of advanced PCB manufacturing and developing competition. So Taiwan is I think, again, Taiwan's critical role is it's the center for helping the American intangible technology to become tangible devices. Even currently, the AI, maybe a couple of years later, quantum era is coming. We still need kind of the physical part. So now NVIDIA is frequently using the new term, physical AI. That means we need a lot of devices to apply, to make the AI can be applied to our life. And the quantum eras as well, so you still need these kind of tangible devices. And so you need a supply chain to supply, to manufacture these kind of tangible devices for you. And American, because we've been discussing about American reindustrialization. This is a very critical policy, and I think Taiwan is the most critical partner for America if the USA is pursuing for reindustrialization, because firstly, America has been abandoning this kind of manufacturing activities for, I think, over 3 decades. And you cannot pick up this capacity within a couple of years. We need time. And so you need ally to support you to reshore, to friendshore this kind of a capacity. On the other hand, during this kind of a process, because PRC is now about to dominate most of the manufacturing supply chain. And if the PRC dominating this kind of manufacturing supply chain, and we're going to see PRC is leveraging this kind of a dominated position more and more to target the USA and other airlines. On the other hand, we are no longer capable of manufacturing things. So whatever technology we are leading, whatever innovation we are leading, we just cannot make it become a tangible device. So we cannot diffuse it. So one of our report we released the center of this year. We titled it "The Great Siege" because we've been witnessing that the PRC is using another strategy to compete with the USA. America in the future might still dominating the most advanced AI, language model, GPU, but on the other hand, PRC is really using their manufacturing capacity over capacity and this kind of dominating position of the supply chain to siege the American technology. And in the end, we're still suffering lacking of this capacity for scale up our manufacturing activities. That will be the huge trouble for our own joint future. So Taiwan is irreplaceable and indispensable for the American can keep winning this kind of competition in the future with its allies. Thank you.
Great. That was wonderful. Yeah, I definitely have a lot of questions on this. I think that, as you were saying, there's a real interest in the United States these days about reshoring, reindustrialization, and the role Taiwan has to play in all of that. Obviously, whenever TSMC makes a nice $100 billion investment announcement, it's warmly welcomed here in the United States. All right. Up next, I'm going to have Ethan, if you could provide some comments.
Hello everyone, my name is Ethan Tu, and the founder of Taiwan AI Lab. Jamie already tell everyone that Taiwan is pretty famous on the hardware manufacturing. Taiwan AI Lab, we are also the very first open AI research institute in Asia. So we focus on the trustworthy and responsible AI research. The reason we do that is because Taiwan is under Soviet power. We also have a very unique position. For example, we have a very first Chinese search engine back in 1994, and we have the social media like PTT in 1995. And both of them are under open source nonprofit organization and become a very dominant um, Soviet power at the time. Um, and after that, I actually work for I ever worked for like a United States for NIH Human Genomic Research Institute. So I actually learned how to build a big data for the human genome research. And I also joined Microsoft in 2006. For 11 years, I actually helped Microsoft to build up the Azure Cloud, the Kubernetes service, and in the Microsoft AI Research Group. So I would say if I work for NIH and Microsoft, I also see a lot of great talent, the software talent from Taiwan join the United States, the leading big tech company, and learning from the big tech, learning from uh, the society in US, and then bring the value back to Taiwan. So Taiwan AI Lab, when we founded Taiwan AI Lab, um, not only we are funding the very first open AI research institute, but also we are funding software power that actually align with United States, the value for human, the value for democracy, and the value for the trustworthy computing in the future. So when we build out the um, AI's AI capability in Taiwan, for example, we are the very first organization. We echo the big cloud infrastructure strategy in United States. So we work with align with the United States big cloud solution. At the same time, we define the unit. We call it the federated technology. By promoting the federated technology, industry by industry, uh, we can provide the security by design and private by design AI technology for our, for example, the healthcare and the financial sectors. So Taiwan AI in Taiwan, for example, we help the 92% of the healthcare system to build out the AI capability. So the medical center, for there are thousands of the medical centers application and the models is already running in Taiwan healthcare systems. And also we support, for example, 39 financial bank to work together for the anti-fraud solution. So this is also very unique. So we have the same value as United States. Instead of building out a large cloud, we support United States to build out a large cloud, just like Sammy mentioned. But also at the private sector, we also provide a premium solution to support the industry that they are not capable to uh, upload their data outside to the cloud, and they have a lot of valuable um, asset. We can help them to turn it into the future AI experience. Okay, so that is a federated alliance. So we in Taiwan we have a federated alliance, and that can support with the best hardware manufacturer and premium solution. And on the other hand, we also in Taiwan we also have we call it we call it a cognitive warfare. So like Taiwan is also at the front end of information manipulation. So therefore, because we understand Mandarin pretty well, so we also train our own large language model. So if you want to have a expert that understand Mandarin best and want to know the language model spells, Taiwan is probably the best expert to understand it. With this large language model we train in-house in Taiwan, we can also observe the information manipulation on the social media. So we can observe the algorithm that is actually being taken advantage by the Australian government. They they can promote and demote the narrative they want. And also we can also detect the bias of the algorithm that actually help to censor the information. For example, the national security law protest in Hong Kong, and also the reason like for example, there are a lot of uh, information manipulation that is related to military actions and military purchases from United States. We can also discover the algorithm bias from our systems. Therefore, I would say in the future, we are building the solution that can support the global like AGI big cloud infrastructure for the United States big tech company. So we are aligned with the Trump administration. We help United States to build out the big AI solution. Uh, and also but also we can help a democracy country around the world, for example, to build out their federated capability. So with this federated capability, work together with a global cloud infrastructure. I believe that will be the super intelligent in the future that help the human, and that is for the human. Um, and if you look into the capability and scaling up the not only the hardware, but also the software in a trustworthy and responsible way. Globally, Taiwan for sure, yeah, is actually one of the think leaders, sole leadership, but also with the hardware and the software capability. So that also uh, let me think. Taiwan and United States in the future, United States want to have a trustworthy partner uh, to become a leader in the AI. Taiwan for sure is a great partner to work with. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think you one of the themes you really touched on, which I think a lot of people are actually quite concerned about, is the availability of talent. And I think what you were saying is Taiwan has a lot of talent. You know, there's already a lot of Taiwanese talent in American companies. And then as we look toward some of our national security concerns when it comes to the PRC and how they might use misinformation online, Taiwan is a great example, or someone to learn from, or a resource to tap into to help identify what they are doing and how we could potentially combat their efforts. So great stuff. Jason, I'm gonna pass it over to you. Bring us home.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. And I want to focus today on a single idea that has become increasingly clear to me in Washington. AI policy is now a national security strategy policy. And the center of gravity for that strategy is not only the algorithm, it's the compute, the chips, the data centers, energy, and the supply chains. Because whoever leads in AI won't just lead in productivity and markets. They will shape the future of military advantage, intelligence dominance, standards, and rules of a global system. So the question I want to pose is, how do United States and Taiwan work together to ensure durable AI leadership, technologically, industrially, and strategically? U.S. State Department recently launched the Pax Silica Alliance, It's a peace and a stability treaty anchored not by ideology alone, but by control and resilience in the silicon to system stack that powers AI. Pax Silica will be built on compute sovereignty, trusted supply chains, and the ability to scale advanced systems faster than the competitors. And Taiwan is not peripheral to that. Taiwan is actually central to that whole concept. When people in Washington, D.C. talk about Taiwan, the conversation often begins and ends with TSMC. And that's understandable because it's incomplete. Taiwan's role in global AI systems broader and deeper than a single company. As Jeremy has noted, the role that Taiwan plays in the other ecosystem aspects. Taiwan is a unique concentration of capabilities across AI hardware, infrastructure stack, advanced logic, manufacturing, packaging, substrates, server, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, here's a shift that Washington is making. AI dominance is not just about inventing the next model. It's about sustaining the entire pipeline that turns model into power. Now, the pipeline has several choke points, and we have all experienced this recently with China imposing on US. Number one is compute supply, advanced chips, packaging, and etc. Second is the manufacturing capacity. Third is infrastructure. Fourth is security and trust. Fifth is adaptation ecosystem, the ability to deploy AI into real sectors, defense, logistics, healthcare, and etc. Now, US policy has been moving fast in response. So you have export control, investment screening, incentives, and etc. But US policy sometimes treats the industrial dimensions as an afterthought, assuming that the market would solve it. Now, that assumption is increasingly risky because China is not approaching AI as a market-owning question. China is treating AI as a state-backed competition immobilization, and it is willing to accept inefficiency for the sake of scale, redundancy, and strategic leverage. So the question, coming back to what I have posted in the earlier, how can Taiwan and US work closely together? So let me outline what would look like in practice. First, co-securing the AI hardware supply chain from chips to system. I think that's very clear. If the chips are the brains, the advanced packaging is the nerve system. And you really have to have the total package. Other capabilities like CoWoS, advanced substrates, HBM integration can be just strategically important and decisive as a front-end labs. And secondly, to have a trusted, redundant chain across Taiwan and the US can surge under geopolitical stress. And as we know, China never turned away its eye on Taiwan. So what does that mean then? It means that joint planning on priority capacity allocation in a crisis. That's very important. Secondly, trusted vendor lists. Thirdly, resilient logistics routes. And fourthly, the security standards that protect IP and compromise. Now, the second idea I want to lay out here is making compute and data center as part of the alliance planning. In the AI era, we should talk about compute stockpiles and surge capacity. Compute is just not the chips, it's an ability to deploy them into clusters with networking power, cooling operations. And Taiwan's companies really excel in this aspect, and then producing a major portion of the world's servers and AI systems. So joint standards for secure AI hardware and firmware, testing, shared testing and certification pipelines, coordinated build out of data centers, and etc. are very important. And the third idea is the aligning export control with allied industrial growth. Export controls does matter. However, it should be paired with a positive program, allied manufacturing incentives, trusted market access, and joint R&D pathways are extremely crucial when it comes to have a positive outcome of growth-oriented programs. Lastly, protecting the ecosystem, security, talent, and integrity. If Taiwan is to remain central to the AI supply chain, then it is the ecosystem that must be protected against espionage, IP theft, and cyber intrusion and coercion. And that's really where the US-Taiwan cooperation should look more like integrated security partnership for the technology base. So joint counterintelligence, shared threat intelligence, tighter cyber standards for sensitive suppliers, stronger legal and enforcement mechanism to deter IP leakage. And really, lastly, to move beyond the hardware, building an AI adoption alliance, it's also just as critical as well. Taiwan can be a living laboratory for the trusted AI deployment, smart manufacturing, logistics optimization, cybersecurity, defense applications. So a practical agenda like this, I believe, would be very important. In DC, obviously, there's a strong support for Taiwan, but the nature of that support is changing. It's increasingly tied to Taiwan, whether it can be seen as a productive and proactive contributor to a shared strength in the AI era. So we stand in a quite critical juncture and be very happy to work together to shape the pathway forward on this. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Wonderfully said. I think I really appreciate your last comment there too on export controls, because we just had the Trump administration release their national security strategy, and there's only one line in there about export controls, but it talks about how we should consider, allies should consider aligning its export controls with the United States, and in doing so, they could potentially get economic benefit with the United States. So as we think about new trade deals, new investment opportunities, new, like you were saying, Jason, other things such as research and development opportunities. It goes to what a lot of concerns countries have had in the past, where it's always just the United States asking for new restrictions without actually offering incentives. But this national security strategy mentions, actually, they are thinking about incentives. And now it's actually a great opportunity for our countries to work closer together on a lot of this. There's so many ways to approach, I think, the AI discussion. And like we were talking about, we've talked about talent, we've talked about the PRC, we've talked about the supply chain side of all of this. And we've even slightly just touched into sort of the frontier modeling, the AI governance issue, which is a whole nother set of challenges. I want to start with, let's just quickly touch on supply chain stuff. I want to get that out of the way, if we can, if that's possible. Just sort of handle that real quick. We talked about guardrails. How do we protect ourselves from what China is doing? Jason, you sort of mentioned this. Jeremy, you also mentioned this. There's a concern, not just on the hardware side, on the supply chain side, but on the modeling side as well, that China is potentially foregoing a lot of its guardrails as it tries to race to be the first production, race to get its models out, race to get its hardware out. We've seen the tech, and we've seen the hardware, and we've seen the scale, and a lot of people are really concerned about the scale. And so how do we insulate our economies? How do we insulate our national securities from these supply chain threats that China presents? I don't know who wants to jump on this first. Maybe we'll do Jeremy, and then we'll just go down the line again if all of you have any thoughts on this.
Yeah, the solution is not easy. So this year we actually released three related report, trying to disclose the ecosystem of the Chinese supply chain, and there's a huge dynamic. So, for example, many of the researchers there in Western world tend to believe that China is a planned economy. This decision making is very centralized. The central government is distributing the resources, but dominating this kind of a policy in a very strict way. But actually, this is not. So based on our analysis, we collected many data. So we're trying to visualize the data, and in the end, you're going to see that Chinese is very, very diversified. So there are many of the local governments are actually playing kind of a central role for this Chinese industrial policy. So what makes the Chinese industrial policy be competitive? Because there is a competition. If the planned economy just is Soviet Union, there's no competition with inside. So it's very, very, very inefficient. But on the other hand, because the Chinese central government is using their leverage, the industrial policy or their authorities is trying to make local competition accelerate this kind of innovation, because there is a brutal competition within the provinces and the cities. Shanghai is competing for Shenzhen, Beijing, Hubei, Anhui, Hefei. So those are the huge players. They are local players. They are subsidizing their local champions, and in order to compete with each other, to pursuing for a national champion status. So the Beijing is very, very good at leveraging this kind of interior competition and cultivate national champions. On the other hand, so it's not only about the supply chain. It's really the language model. We see this kind of local competition there as well. There's competition, so there's a winner. But on the other hand, there's a side effect as well. So you're going to see why the overcapacity happened there in China, because Beijing cannot control this kind of overcapacity. Each of the local government is really focusing on that kind of a similar topic, chosen by central government. For example, central government say, okay, this couple of years we are aiming. They have like each of the 5 year plans. So whenever they are targeting like EVs, you're going to see hundreds of EV brands, EV car manufacturers emerge there in everywhere of China. And then now the central government is mentioning that we have to lead a large language model. You see the hundreds of language model be emerge there in China, in each part of China. And every local government play this kind of stakeholders. They are keeping investing, and that's caused over capacity. We don't see there's an efficiency, because everybody's just playing like a similar game, and everybody's over investing. But on the other hand, we saw, even though there is no efficiency, we see there is a very, very effectively to wipe out their Western rivalries, because none of the Chinese, these kind of companies who are manufacturing semiconductors or developing large language model, they actually don't need profit. But Western companies need profit. These Chinese companies, they're relying. They can rely on subsidies. They can rely on much diversified subsidies. It's not really about the monetary subsidies. It's not really about the fundings. Even the Chinese, they're kind of leveraging their own ecosystem by having more and more VC-like investors to join this game, to accelerate kind of a competition. Okay, in terms of a strategy, so what is the feasible strategy? Firstly, I don't think previously what we have been using, which is export control, singly is going to be effective, because the export control can only target bottleneck, can only target those who are very, very choke point technology, either like advanced chip or advanced equipment. But on the other hand, if we are discussing this about supply chain or scale or volume, like ecosystem issue, then export control singly will not be effective. So on the other hand, we're kind of brainstorming about, firstly, whether there's a more feasible way to leverage export control, but leveraging use export control to more cleverly to target the Chinese stakeholders. That isn't kind of trying to harm their own rationale, harm their ecosystem, because there is logic, there is a competition. So whenever there's a competition, we can find some way by our economic statecraft to intervene into this ecosystem and trying to de-incentivize them to compete in whatever way that their government want to lead them to go there. So on the other hand, I think a kind of tabletop exercise or working scenario is very, very necessary now for us to discussing, like, firstly, collecting data, identify who is the stakeholders, identify what are the necessary data, and then we do by our models and to design a tabletop exercise game, either targeting advanced chips, HBM, or language model. And then we can figure out what are other policy tools might be useful for us, like a card, and to play and help us to win this kind of grand competition. So not only export control, well, investment screening or even import control might be a discussable way. And our measures, I mean, so but first of all, we got to identify their stakeholders, figure out their rationale for playing their internal competition, and collecting more relevant data in order to having a more feasible strategy to compete with them.
Sure. I'm gonna have a separate question for you, Ethan. I don't know, Jason, if you want to hop on this real quick and provide a couple thoughts.
Yeah, I'll just quickly chime in. I think Jeremy has already covered most of it, but I think today's competition is drastically different than the one that we faced, say, during Biden administration. Biden administration obviously used denial as a strategy to counter China's rise on AI. But really what today we see is that China is able to, basically lift internal guardrails and mobilize state resources to scale AI, and US still faces, over restricting itself and its allies when China adapts around the constraints. And let me just make one point clear that, AI leadership, it's about ecosystem. It's not just about denial. So if you deny H200 chips to China, and China is still able to develop their own homegrown chips over time. And we've seen it, building domestic accelerators, data centers, and optimize it around the low-end chips, compensating with brute force, compute, and energy. So in any shape or form, China is still able to do good enough AI anyway to compete with the US. So now we really have to adopt a new strategic framework that would sustain US's industrial leadership, and then foster a joint consensus with US and its allies to put more efforts on next generation R&D, and then keep the innovation flywheel turning faster than China's. And China is really catching up. If you've seen the boom in their AI startups IPO in the last few months, you can see they are really on a trajectory rise right now, and so that's an alarming sign to the US and its allies, and so a change of strategy is must.
Well, I have faith in our industry. We're going to spend over $300 billion on AI next year, so hopefully we could keep that lead at least for another year or so. Ethan, I want you to comment on all this, but I want to add sort of a qualifying question on top of that. It's how do we there's always a concern about the trade-off between security and innovation. And I'm not just talking about on the hardware side, on the software side as well. Like when we talk about AI governance, and when we think about the White House, for example, just released this executive order talking about how it's trying to get ahead of this potential patchwork that we have of state laws in the United States that could create an unfriendly environment for AI development. And so I don't know anything about what the government in Taiwan is doing on AI governance, but how do we think about not just insulating ourselves from the threat that the PRC has presents, but also the threat that a lot of people are concerned that AI could present to our social and economic democracies, and then again making sure that we can continue that innovation, that we can continue to innovate and lead on in AI.
Okay, so thanks for asking me this question. I think this is a big topic. First of all, and I can also comment a little bit about China and United States competition on AI because I am probably one of the very few people ever work for United States big tech company Microsoft and also U.S. government. But at the same time, when I work for Microsoft, I also help to set up the AI team in China, Beijing, and Suzhou. So I also know China pretty well. Okay, so I would say um, in currently there are two strategy in when we say developing AI. In United States, a big tech approach. We rely on a private company that growing pretty fast and invest in large infrastructure like a big AI cloud to ensure the big tech company in the United States is leading the world. That's one strategy. But in China, when we set up Microsoft Research Asia, for example, and when I work with a team in China, I can actually call them their big government approach. The big government approach, what is their approach? Actually, I won't say they are doing innovation. They are setting up the topic. For example, if there's a high-speed train in China, then there will be a high-speed train go faster than United States. Okay, in AI, if there's like for example, ImageNet competition. So in the ImageNet competition, then in the China team will use all the effort sponsored by the government to win the ImageNet competition at the first place. Same as a language model. So when we say language model is the future, the way we set up the benchmark in United States, China will use this benchmark and tune their AI model into the first place. So that's what China is the strength in China is the government will sponsor whole lot of team in China to compete the benchmark that we set up by the United States. However, for example, while there's no the large language model is not firstly developed in China, while the deep learning model is not firstly developed in China, because they are used to see what is the trending, then you leveraging the current benchmark to tune into the best result. And that is a good thing, but that also have a bad impact. For example, if there's a new innovative area in the AI research, usually they will get less funding in China. And also, because all the top research is sponsored by the government, like Jeremy said, the company itself is not getting the reward from the market. It's not an economic sustainable approach to get into the market. Instead, the major AI company, they are getting the revenue from the government. So this is like a China government to set up the environment. For example, the large-scale smart city surveillance project. Then there will be a like sense time. That's a very good for the facial recognition, do all the surveillance for all the China citizens, then become a China unicorn. So they use this big government approach. For example, when we Microsoft developed the speed recognition service on the Azure cloud, the China they have iFlyTech. They offer the speed recognition service for free. But why they offer speed recognition service for free? Because they help the government collect the sensitive data. So everyone, when they use the app using their speed recognition, the government can collect the information for the information purpose. Okay, so so if we treat the China company as a traditional like company in United States, no company in the Western country can compete with China company because they are sponsored by the government. They don't need to make money from the users. Um, but but also because of that, for the Western country, we need to set up a security, I will say security principle, a privacy principle, security principle. If we set up this privacy security principle by nature, the company they provide the trustworthy solution like Taiwan Air Lab, they will stay on the market. And for the company, they rely on the sponsorship, but they don't care about the security. They don't care about the security even more. They collect the data for the China government, and they won't be used by the Western country. So I would say, don't worry about the competition. I know China is very good at tuning up their model and beat the benchmark. However, the AI competition is not only the benchmark we set up, but also on the ecosystem, like Jason said, the ecosystem and also the result, the market acceptance. The more country, more citizens, they rely on your service, they believe in your service, then they in the end you will become the leader of the industry. And okay, and also there's one topic I want to mention. And there's always a statement saying, because in China we don't care about the information security, we don't care about privacy, therefore we will become the leader in the AI competition. No, I don't think that. Because I ever see a lot of AI solution. For example, the healthcare system. In Taiwan, we have this federated alliance built up for the healthcare and for the finance sectors. We leverage this federated alliance. We can build up thousands of the reliable application, and we can also validate the application in a federated approach, which means when we build out the AI application, we don't need to centralize the data. With the data, we have a unified common data model, common protocol. We can train the model together, reach the best result without sharing data. At the same time, we can validate the AI model. If there's an AI model from China, for example, they have a best healthcare result. We can validate by different hospital. And we see a lot of time, although this model ever claim they trained by billions of data, however, didn't pass our test in Taiwan. So I would say the evaluation will be a very important part for the AI in the future. Therefore, in Taiwan, we have a responsible AI principle. So this responsible AI principle, before we adopt the AI model, Taiwan, we also have the AI Act initiative that actually started by Jason when he was a lawmaker in Taiwan. So we want to make sure this AI model is principle. We need to make sure this AI model is traceable, verifiable, and auditable. It's just like when you are using a drug, you need to be approved by FDA if this drug you use is with a risk. So we need to do a risk assessment first before you you use this AI model, we need to make sure this AI model is trustworthy. So Taiwan AI naturally take this role and and also advocate this principle in Taiwan. We also educate the Taiwan hospital, healthcare system, and also the financial sectors, also the manufacturing industry, to use AI without fear. So I would say yes, there's one direction that we keep building up, aggregating the big data in the big tech or in the big government approach. But also there's also another federated approach. Taiwan right now is building up this capability without showing data, but we can also have a good AI solution together. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. So I'm gonna ask you all for some final remarks. But based off of what you've all said so far, it sounds like, if I had to simplify it, competition, cooperation with Taiwan, sort of our leading economies versus the PRC is really this. What we're seeing is it's this push and pull between quality versus quantity, right? We have higher standards of quality. We have the better technology. We have the higher standards, while China is just doing what it's always been good at, which is just pumping things out in mass quantities. And those create some challenges, because that can also be challenging because I think there's a lot of expectations that adaptation by countries, by economies of AI can also, in a way, help countries develop their AI ecosystem, right? And we're talking about, again, the sort of the legacy chips being embedded into our daily products that could use the AI that is running on big cloud and things like that. And those create some challenges. When we talk about US-Taiwan specifically, like you were saying, Jason, unfortunately, a lot of it comes down to just geography, and one company. How much is that one company making in Taiwan versus how much they're making within the United States? And what does that mean for our relationship? And obviously, the United States always wants more being manufactured here, while the people of Taiwan are always very concerned when there are large announcements of investment being put outside of the country. And so those also create some challenges as we think about how do we look to greater US-Taiwan cooperation in this space. So I'd love to hear some just final remarks from each of you. We'll go down the line again, Jeremy, Ethan, and Jason. If you have any final thoughts. If you don't, that's fine as well.
Yeah, thanks so much, Riley. So I think Taiwan is irreplaceable and indispensable for the US and its allies can keep enjoying and jointly dominating the future of the human civilization in the era of AI. But on the other hand, Taiwan's position is replaceable only by the PRC. So maintain Taiwan as an efficient and sustainable manufacturing ecosystem that always helps the US to scale up the manufacturing activities, always help the intangible innovation become tangible technologies. Taiwan is still the center of the future of the US and its ally. And so for Taiwan, of course, there is a concern that Taiwan has to share our own manufacturing capacity with the US. But on the other hand, I believe this kind of strengthening this kind of interdependent relations is the win-win solution for both sides. So definitely, I still support this idea. Taiwan should help the US to reindustrialize itself, because in the end of the day, whenever we don't want the day coming but we have seriously considering about contingency, right? And in the 30s of last century, because U.S. has become played kind of a center role for arsenal of democracy. So we still want, this is only capable that whenever the U.S. is capable of reindustrialize itself, it can join to lead this and win the competition with our rivalries. But the last part, I think inclusion of Taiwan is very critical. When Jason mentioned the new initiative, Pax Seliga, we saw some of the new country names there as a new partners of the U.S. But Taiwan still be mentioned as a guest, contribution guest. I think that's acceptable, but we still have to persuade our policymakers there in Washington, D.C. that inclusion Taiwan is only the interest for the U.S. So I think I'm pretty much all it. Thank you so much.
I'll just say, in my experience, it's not always the United States that excludes Taiwan from these efforts, right? It's usually sometimes for the other partners' sensitivities, and they're not wanting to be too much upsetting of PRC. As you mentioned, there's a lot of new members in there. So, Ethan, over to you.
Okay, so I think I'm more positive on investing Taiwan technology company in United States. Because I also work for Microsoft. Microsoft, we used to have like a very data center around the world. So we invest the data center 44 language of the AI models. So I actually don't feel invest outside your territory is a bad thing. It's actually bring more talents to work together and have more power. So that's how I feel. And I also feel actually Taiwan high-tech company like Taiwan Semiconductor and also like MediaTek and also like Quanta Computer. A lot of them, they also invest everywhere, including China. So so why we don't invest in United States? It's no brainer. The reason there are a lot of information manipulation about Taiwan should not invest in United States, I think that was because intentionally there's information manipulation from our big neighbor. They don't want Taiwan to work too close with United States. But for me, the Taiwan work closely with United States is a win-win solution. Why not? And Taiwan already invests everywhere. Like the United States also invests everywhere, including China. Like when I work for Microsoft, we invest in China a lot. Why we cannot invest in United States? Of course we can. Yeah. So I don't feel any for the economic and also for the technology reason, there's no brainer to work together. The only concern is right now a lot of people worry about because in the future there's we can see the major competition between United States and China. A lot of people care. Okay, now Taiwan should stand with US or stand with China, because you stand with US, China will not happy, and you stay with China, United States will not happy. And this is time to make a decision. For me, of course, I choose the technology that can be freedom, that can be trustworthy, then that can be valuing the human nature, that can be the human center in the technology in the future. So for me, there's a no-brainer. We need to work with a country that with freedom. Thank you.
Absolutely. Jason, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I want to just to reiterate the 4 points I lay out in my opening remarks. So again, core security in the AI hardware supply chain from chips to ecosystem. And so it's not just one company, as Riley, you have so aptly pointed out. there's a whole host of ecosystem that's coming to the US to invest. And for the next 3 to 5 years, we'll see more and more companies from Taiwan investing in the US. So how do we make it easy for Taiwan to invest in the US? For example, fast track the permits, the immigration laws, and to prioritize the critical technologies between US and Taiwan. I think it's critical. And secondly, again, making compute and data centers as part of the alliance planning. And Taiwan is obviously at a very core of the whole data center ecosystem. Companies such as Wistron, Quanta, Foxconn are all building data centers for US companies in the United States. So how do you ensure that the development is win-win for both ways, and also provide a secure insulation from their China risks is also extremely important as well. And then the third one is obviously, develop more incentive-oriented export control programs. And again, I go back to the pivot that this administration is making away from the Biden administration, which is basically the AI diffusion is probably more strategically important than the denial of the chips. So really need to focus on industrial growth, and how do we ensure that in the face of a competition, not only US wins against China, but US wins with allies. And I think that's very important, and Taiwan being a very close ally to the US. Things such as the trusted market access, the joint R&D pathways are just equally important as we think about the other regulations as well. And then lastly is protecting the ecosystem, and the security, talent, and the integrity are all of the above very, very important. Today's China's rise in AI and semiconductors are largely due to the help from engineers and the talent from Taiwan. The top level engineers from TSMC, after they left their job or retire, end up working or consulting for their Chinese competitors. So the technology espionage, the IP theft, the cyber intrusion are all of the very important areas to think about. And then lastly, I just wanted to also caveat one important concept as we think about how to deal with China. It's clear to me that China is developing AI without permission from the US, and it is developing a good enough AI and also permeating through their sphere of influence, such as Global South, Belt and Road initiatives. And so the race in AI has become going from the restrictions to high-end chips to who diffuse their technology faster and then more stronger. And so in light of this, we really need to think through how exactly US should view this competition going forward. If US continuously to think about it through the denial of the market or denial of access model, China is going to propagate their cheap but biased models through countries that they will have influence over, and then being able to spill over the type of narrative that is operated under China's white label AI system that is going to be that's going to endanger democracy. And this is especially critical to Taiwan, because when you search a certain query on Chinese-enabled AI, it obviously spins a different truth than what it is the real truth. So I think this is as important as national security as in the economic competition and growth. So I'll just stop here. And obviously, there's a lot to think through, and then there's still a lot to discuss.
Absolutely. Like I was said at the beginning of this, we really are just scratching the surface on a lot of this. I think to your last point, it's really something that the U.S. is concerned about, but I don't know if we have a true strategy on. The national security strategy talks about the fact that the United States has and it will continue to highlight. When for example Beijing comes to these countries in the developing world with a project and they say there's no strings attached, we and other countries will often have to actually educate them on these countries that there's no such thing as no strings attached. And it's the same thing with this technology and the export of their technology, because it has a lot of implications for their futures and our futures. Anyways, I want to thank you all for joining us today. This has been a wonderful discussion. I think we're going to have to probably do this again in another 3 months when we've probably had another life-changing development in our AI infrastructure or policy or something, just because of how quickly this AI ecosystem is developing. And so anyways, I want to thank you all again. Thank you for joining us today at Hudson Institute. Please stay tuned to hudson.org for our programming and our events. We continue to focus on things of national security and foreign policy that are concerns to the United States and, of course, our partners and allies around the world. Again, thank you all.